Okay.
I'll give it a few more minutes before we get started. Okay. Jason and Mike, are you guys ready to get started?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us today. We're about to talk about two things that hurt real estate businesses: spreadsheets and stale relations. Before we begin, I just wanted to walk through a few housekeeping items. Just please remember, to qualify for CPE, participants must log in using their own computer, actively respond to all polling questions, and stay on for the duration of the broadcast. And if you have any technical difficulties responding to the polling questions, please send an email to elevatelearn@armaninollp.com with the name and date of your session along with your poll responses. Our learning objectives today will be identify solutions for addressing documents, specifically K1s and quarterly reports, create faster ways to manage your investments, and discover ways to automate your business through a demo of AppFolio's software solutions. So I'm going to hand the presentation over to Jason and Mike to get us started.
Thanks, Tanza. So thank you all for joining or listening in, whichever you may be. My name is Jason Gilbert. I'm a partner with Armanino. Been with the firm now 15 plus years and heavily involved in our fund practice over the years, private equity real estate type solutions and setups. And, you know, something that's always held true throughout those years was when it comes to this time of year and you know, tax reporting, K1 reporting time period, it's very stressful and can be very stressful depending on what the setup is like for a lot of our relationships and how they are operating on a regular basis. Some of them are in spreadsheets and aggregating that information. And, you know, while that may work throughout the year and pulling everything together, when it comes to the end of the year and trying to aggregate full year's worth of detail becomes cumbersome, kind of clunky. Part two is that all of a sudden you have to aggregate all this investor information, make sure it's up to date for the K1s and making sure that their personal information is where it's supposed to be and back and forth with your investors. And all this is taking time away from you getting your stuff done and delivering K1s and getting back to raising capital and doing deals. So there's got to be better solutions. And we know there's better solutions. And that's one of the main reasons we've developed a relationship here with AppFolio, is because we think they've developed a very unique solution for a lot of our clients and a myriad of size ranges, single syndication products all the way to multiple syndications, large funds. Can be using the product and simplifying your life. So very happy to introduce everyone to Mike, who's going to give us a glimpse into what the possibilities can be. And Mike, with that, you can make your intro and take hold of the mic.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Jason. And thanks for that intro. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about really the two things that are hurting real estate businesses: spreadsheets and stale investor relations. As Jason mentioned, my name is Mike Sebastian, and I'm the industry principal at AppFolio Investment Management. Some of the listeners may already be familiar with who we are, but for those who aren't familiar with who we are a purpose-built real estate investment management software platform. And we specialize in two things: simplifying your investment operations and transforming your investor experiences. So thanks to the partnership with Armanino, we're excited to extend our capabilities to the fund administration side of real estate. The way I like to think about how it is that Armanino and AppFolio work together is that Armanino is the human layer for your fund admin operations. They essentially become an extension of your team that understands your business and the industry, whereas AppFolio is the technology layer. And our main goal is to take away the manual time sucks. So think of this as the data entry, communicating back and forth between your investors, finding asset information when you need it, so that you can focus on more important things. When you combine the two layers, this creates a single source of the truth that can securely automate and scale your investor relations and investment operations. So now we're going to dive into a demo so I can show you exactly what we mean. But before we do that, I want to introduce one thing, and then we're going to go into a poll. So the first thing, I just started to mention a little bit about what AppFolio is, but let me before I jump right into software and we get into that poll, let me explain one more thing with this slide. And so our software really is designed off of three main pillars. The first is investor relations. And so we're going to look at a little bit of this functionality partly today. And so this will be managing all your investors' information, what they're invested in, all your interactions with them, and then a full fundraising platform that goes end to end all the way to gathering electronic signatures. That second pillar that we call investment management is really for tracking your active investments. This is going to be your cap tables, all the contributions and distributions, and information necessary so that Armanino can help generate those K1s. And then and other things. It's also where we're going to talk about reporting. And then the third component is an investor portal. Now, the investor portal is where your investors log in. They can do that on their phone, on their laptop, wherever they want, securely, and get access to the information 24/7, including all their tax documents, up-to-date information on their investments, et cetera. So we're going to see aspects of all these things today. So let me actually switch over and let's put up that poll as we dive into the demo. We're going to start off with K1s today.
All right. So our first polling question, let me launch it, asks, how are you currently distributing K1s? You can choose mail, email, file sharing tools, specialized investment management software, or other. It says polling question 2. They got a little bit out of order. So we'll answer this one first and then polling question 1 second. So give everybody just a few seconds to respond. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll and hand it back over to the mic.
All right, thank you. So hopefully, maybe Jason, you can confirm everyone can see my dashboard here.
Yep, we have your dashboard.
Perfect. All right, so the first topic we're going to talk about is K1s. What you're looking at here would be what we might call your back office. And this is the site that you log into. You can do that on your phone. You can do it on your laptop, on your tablet. And you're going to get a lot of the things in here that I just described at a high level with that slide deck. And I won't spend too much time on here right now, but the one things I do want to point out is that we've designed it to have a lot of simplicity built in. So you can easily navigate to your reporting, to other things. You can easily come up here and type in an investor and quickly get into their investor dashboard. Now, I do want to spend just a second on this, or we're going to spend more time on it later, but I think this will lead into how we generate that data for the K1 so easily. So on an investor dashboard, you really have a holistic view of that investor. We can see all of their distribution history across all their investments, all their contribution history. And then down below here, we have all of their position data. Now, there's a lot more stuff in here, but just understand we're tracking all this information. So now when we go over to reporting, and when we get to tax season, we have a report here called K1 information. And what this is an Excel export. So it takes all that information for all investors, all our investments for the whole tax year, and puts it in a nicely formatted report into Excel. And so I don't want to share screen, so I'm not going to, or change screens here. So I won't run this now, but it is an Excel file that you get all that information. So you can take this information, give it to Armanino, or they can come in and get it. And then what happens is they're going to do their magic and get you back your K1s. Now, over up in the corner here, we have upload K1s. So we have a built-in tool to really efficiently help distribute all these now. You can imagine now I have these K1s. They can either be set up as a single PDF, spaced out, say, with every 3 to 4 pages would be an individual investor. Or we can go in and look at, or they can be individual documents. Doesn't matter. We don't care what they're named. But now you can drag and drop those files in here. Or in my case, I'm going to click choose, and you may not be able to see my little file picker box that comes up just because of how Zoom works. But now what I'm going to do is just navigate. I'll just tell you what I'm doing here. Navigate over to a folder where I have some basically fake K1s I set up from the IRS website. And so I'm just going to grab a handful of those and hit open. And it pulls them in. So you can see processing 6 files down here because I pulled in 6 individual files as opposed to 1. And we hit next. And you'll see it comes up with a bunch of names here. So it says matched investing entity. These are the file names. We don't care what those are. What we're doing is our software is able to read into the PDFs and really read the tax IDs up of all the entities. So it just matches them up for you automatically and the tax year. So there's a lot of questions that usually come up, like what happens if the tax IDs are X'd out except the last 4? We handle those situations. The algorithm is designed to account for those things. And so it's able to very quickly match all this up. So you don't have to spend a lot of time either printing these out and stuffing envelopes, or you don't have to spend a lot of time manually associating them to a folder for somebody or emailing them out. It just automatically gets assigned. Now, all you have to do is click send email notifications, upload, and share. So that's really the entire process. What happens when you click upload and share is everybody who is associated to that account for that investor will now get an email, and that what they do is they can click the button in the email. It takes them to their portal where they have to log in, and now they can consume all their tax documents. And so we're going to look in a little bit about and see the investor's side of that and see how that looks. It looks like my lights in here just went off. There we go. So that's and I have some funny looking shadows on my face. So hopefully that's not too distracting. But that's how the K1s would work. So the next section that we're going to go into is really dovetails with this, which is investor reporting. So I'm going to pause for another poll before we run into investor reporting.
All right. Our second polling question asks, how much time do you spend a quarter on these reports? So we've got a few hours, 10 to 20 hours, 20 to 30, or 40 plus. Again, this is the second polling question. It might say polling question 1 to you, but they got switched up, so. I'll give everybody just a few more seconds. Thank you for those that have responded already. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out, Mike.
Sounds good. All right, so now we're going to get into investor reporting. So as you can see, there's a lot of reports. To access them in our system, we have a reporting menu. It's very easy to get to. The two we're going to focus on now are the types of reports that go specifically to investors. And so the first one is the investor statement. The second one will be the investment report. So the investor statement, as you can see here, there's the navigations across the top. So we have our create statements. Once we have our statements set up and the basic template done, on an ongoing basis, you'll be able to go in and create statements just with a couple clicks. And we'll show you that. You can always view, and I don't have any here, past statement history and control those and look at who's viewed them. Now let's first look at how to customize these statements. It's very simple to do. The left-hand side of the screen here is going to be your template. The right-hand side of the screen is going to be a rendering of that statement for a particular investor. So I might look up a particular, let's say Andrew Davis here. So you'll see that, and this will sort of correspond and update in real time. So the first section here is the summary, and you can change that section. You can drag and drop and move these sections around. So it's very easy to configure. And some clients like to have a portfolio view that might look like this, where it has your distributions and contributions given that period. Some might prefer to have more of a capital balance like view that shows the change in capital balance over time. So again, there's just a lot of different settings that you can pick and choose from here. Transaction details, how do we want to group that? Do we not want to group it? So it's essentially ordered by date, or do you want to group it by investment or account? So what we call an investing entity would be like your account, like your IRA, your trust, your LLCs. Then we have things like current position. So again, you can turn any of these on or off, move them around, regroup them. But then over here, and I have most of them turned on with some different configuration set up. Over here, what we can do is choose a contact or an investor that we want to preview this for. So you can choose a few if you want to. If I click this little preview button, it'll export this to a new tab, and that will give us a PDF of that. So if we wanted to generate it that way. But now I can see it'll be branded for your company. It'll have your contact information, the investor's name and statement date. And then like we have up here, the balance. So we have our balance summary or summary, however you set that up. If there's a balance or portfolio summary. Below that are transaction details grouped however you told it to group it. So this will be all your contributions, any distributions. You'll notice there's the type of the transaction it is and all those details. Then we get into their current positions. So we can see, for example, in Main Street USA, what Andrew Davis's ownership percentage, what their cap table in that deal is. So all their contributions, distributions, unreturned capital, any accrued balance like an accrued pref and net equity. These are have some configurability to them in terms of what you want to show and not show. Other deals they might be in, like a fund or other syndications. And then below that, we get into the portfolio performance. So our system, based on all this transactional data, will automatically or can automatically calculate your performance for you in the form of a cash on cash, IRR, and equity multiple. And you can pick and choose by deal which of these you want to share and which ones you don't. So for example, on the home value fund, I may not want to share my IRRs, but I might want to show some of these other statistics. And we also, as you can see here, we'll show it both at the investor level, the fund or syndication or deal level, and then the target if you want to share that. So again, you can pick and choose which of these you want to share by deal. And so that would be our investor statement. Now, once you're happy with the way that it's configured and what it looks like, on an ongoing basis to create the statements, you basically it's just a few clicks. So I would come in here at the beginning of, say, the quarter, if I'm distributing statements quarterly, and I might call this investor statement Q, or in Q1, or actually we're in Q2 now. So yeah, I'd be for my Q1 22. You can name it however you want to. You can see the different time frames. So if your company likes to distribute monthly, you can do that as well, or less frequently. You can also put out an annual statement, and then we just hit apply. And now we can filter. We can look for specific statements if we want. We can filter by investment. But basically, you would just say select all. And when you click the share statements, everybody gets an email. And when they click the email, it takes them to the portal, and they go and they can see their statements in the portal. So, or download them there. It's very, very simple to do and distribute those, as you can see. So that's one report. That's our investor statement. Now, a lot of questions come up then. Well, what if I want a more customizable report? What if I want something that's more really targeted to an investment? And that's what we call the investment report. And so it works in a similar manner. You can see we have, but there's an additional section here, and I'll explain that in a minute. Down here, we have our report templates. So this would be the report for a fund or for a specific deal. So let's use my fund here as an example. I'll click edit on that so we can see the template. Now, just like with the prior report, the left-hand side of the screen is going to be your template, and the right-hand side of the screen is going to be a rendering for any given investor. So now what we can do is come in and pick your name, pick your date range, and we have these options for sections right here. So let me pause for a second and talk about these sections. This would be a configuration if you don't do the property management. Maybe you outsource it, maybe you use a different system. And so you can choose different sections here, and then we can string those together to build your report. If you were using AppFolio Property Manager in conjunction with your investment manager, then you'd also have the option of pulling in reports from property managers, so your rent rolls and your balance sheets and income statements. But nonetheless, you can see here we have a cover letter. So this is where you can pull in things like merge fields to customize it. You can put in hyperlinks and things. This is where you would put your narrative for what's going on at that property or that fund or whatever it happens to be. And you can even do things like load up. Let me pull in a picture here so we can load in pictures. Here's a good one right here. That looks good. And let's just open that one. There we go. So now I can pull in pictures, and maybe you want to resize it. So just to show you the flexibility with how you can really tailor that to your investors. Below that, I added a section called asset details. Now, asset details are data that's held in our system about each of your properties, including photos and a lot of other data. And what we can do is take all that information and very quickly put it together so it looks really nice, and you can choose your photo layout options there. You'll see what it looks like in just a second. Here I've included the investor statement, and it can customize it and tailor it to just this report if we want to. So it's the same investor statement options you just saw. And so what a lot of clients of ours will like to do is include, a cap table, maybe their transaction history on the fund or on the deal. So a lot of that kind of information. So you can just automatically include it, and it's formatted and you already know what it's going to look like. You can upload PDFs. So this can be a really great option if you have custom content you want to just pull in. If you do like to distribute financials to your investors, you can just drag and drop those in if they come from another system. Again, if they're linked to AppFolio Property Manager, you can just pick the report here. And then you just add sections. So that is how we build the template. And then you'll notice this mark is ready to share at the bottom here. When you're done, so we're going to go and review what this looks like, but when you're done and you're happy with what the report looks like, you would click mark is ready to share and save draft. And what that'll do is pop that up or allow it, gives you an extra step for review. And then we'll look at how we get that out to investors. But what this now would look like to an investor, if we were to send this out, is again, you'd have your cover letter and it'll be nicely formatted for you and has your pictures that we loaded in. It renders all that in real time. Then we have our asset details. Now this happens to be a fund I chose, so it has multiple assets and it's just going to have a page for each one, but you can see it nicely formats some of the details here with the latest valuation, the loan balance. It's data that's kept in our system that you can update your narrative for that specific property, for what's going on there. If you don't want to share one of these statistics, you just leave it blank in our software. So there's 3 different assets. Then we get into that, as we saw here, I included the investor statement details. Then we have our balance sheet that we pulled in, and you can pull in other data as you want to. Again, then we go and mark is ready to share. So I'm going to cancel out of that for a second. And so what happens if I were to go in and save that market ready to share is it goes up into this ready to share bucket. And when all of your reports are complete and ready to share, they bump up in here, and then you click the share with contacts, and all your investors and anybody who else is supposed to get the report gets 1 email for all their reports, not 50 emails for 50 reports. And so that makes it a lot nicer for your investors because now they have 1 button to click to go consume those reports from the portal. So it makes it very nice for them. So hopefully that made sense, and looking forward to any questions on this. So that's our reporting for investors. Now we're going to move on to our CRM, and then we'll pause for another poll after that, if I have that order right. So let's talk about the CRM for a minute. You saw how at the very beginning, if I go back to our main dashboard, we have the ability to come in here and search by keyword. So I can look up an investment, I can look up an investor. We also have a contacts dashboard where now I can filter on all my contacts, active investors, repeat, anybody who's not invested, your portal activity. And then I can really dive in. If I'm looking for a specific group of investors, I can look by name. I could say, show me all my, Davids, or I can type in part of a keyword there. If I want to look up certain tags. So tags are a way to group and subgroup investors. So why would I do that? Well, maybe I want to differentiate between my high net worth and my institutional versus my family office investors. Maybe I have an RIA or a broker dealer who is feeding us investors or co-sponsors. And so we can use these to tag those and then look up who belongs to those groups. We can also use them if I were to go in. Oh, by the way, I can also filter on investment by status. We have advanced filtering where you can go in and say, use and or logic. So maybe I want to look for everybody who's not in a certain investment, who doesn't have a certain tag. So again, lots of ways, other filters down here. But let's say I pull up my custom list I've created here. And let's assume that that's just some combination of filters that gets me to a list of a number of investors. Well, now I can do a number of things with this. I can see all my investors down here. I can see statuses. I can check a box. And now I can add a tag to all those investors at once. Why would I do that? Well, if you're raising, say, a syndication and you don't want to oversubscribe and I want to mark them as my group A, I might earmark them for, new fundraise Group A. And now when I go to that fundraise, I have a really simple way of pulling in my Group A and my Group B. Later, I can come and remove those tags just as easily as I added them. So it's a very quick and efficient way of sorting and working with them. We can compose an email to that group of investors. And there's a lot of ways to compose emails in our system. You can do it one-off, you can do it from here, you can do it from a specific investment, from a fundraise. And there's advantages to doing that because it collates the list for you, and then it sends a unique email for each investor. So it's not a BCC thing going on. Everybody gets their own individual email. We can then employ templates that you can craft. They can be personalized. They'll pull in your pictures and merge fields and signature and everything. You can drag and drop files in. You can even send it for later, so it appears at 8 a.m. at the top of their inbox the next morning, just by way of example. And again, each individual investor is going to get a unique email. Now, the next question that would naturally come up is, well, how is that getting sent out of your system? And that's really, I think, where we have a strategic advantage here, and where we've put a lot of effort into making this really helpful and seamless to our clients. So the best way to think about it is it works just like your smartphone. When you set up your Apple iPhone or your Android phone, it's going to have, if you remember when you set up your email on there, you chose your provider, whether it was Outlook or Gmail or something else, Yahoo, from your drop-down box, and you put in your email and your password and you authenticate it. Now you can send and receive all the emails on your phone. When you send an email from your phone, it shows up in your your sent items folder if you go log in on your laptop. And this is exactly the same. So when I send an email from here, if you have linked your email, your work email or any email you want to use to our system, these emails will send from your email and they will show up in your sent items folder. And so that gets around all the whitelisting and blacklisting problems and spam problems, because it's going to come from you. And there is no tricky plugins or BCC things that we need to do in order to make that work. It just functions behind the scenes. And so that's a really good value for that. Additionally, actually let's dive into an investor now for a second. So I'll go into myself here, and let's scroll down to the emails and get a little ahead of myself. So now I have a listing of every single email that I've ever emailed to this investor, and you can see all those details. And so the thing I was going to get to with this is, and my light keeps turning off here, if that investor then replies to your email, we sync that automatically. So again, you're not having to spend a ton of extra clicks and time doing that. It just does it for you. And if there's an email that comes in that was about, baseball tickets or something, you can just come in here and delete it very easily. And so and that'll only delete it out of our system, not out of your personal email. So again, a lot of effort put into that to make it as seamless for you as possible. All right, so that's how the email integration works. Now let's spend just another minute on a couple added things on the investor dashboard. So this is really dually, like I mentioned, a contact and an investor dashboard. And you can see across all of the deals that this investor is invested in with you, their total committed, contributed capital, all their distributions. You have all their transaction history and details at the top. So this would be a listing of all their distributions across all their deals. You can download that or export it to Excel very easily from here. They can do the same thing from the portal. And you can filter it. So if you're looking for something specific, like what did they invest in the fund, and maybe with a certain account and maybe in a certain year, you can really quickly get to those answers and do what you need to do with it. Same with contributions. We can see all the fundraisers they've been invited to. And there's also an activity timeline. So anytime there's an interaction, like a distribution, a document signature request, you name it, a task, you'll see all that here. Speaking of tasks, as we scroll down, tasks let us stay on point. So you can see all the tasks associated with this investor. You can create tasks for anything, a task for a new offering. So what to do next, who to follow up with, what do you need to do on that new offering? We're going to talk about that. We'll look at tasks for a specific investor, tasks for an investment. They can be repetitive. So adding a task is very simple. You can do it right on your phone. You can see the repetition if you want to make it repetitive here, give it a title, details, associate it to different people in your organization. So that's just a really good way to stay on point with what you're doing and who you're working with. Here we can see the contact information, their portal status, and I can preview their portal. So we can, and we're going to go to that in just a minute, but we'll be able to see exactly what your investors see when they log in. Investing entities is their accounts. This is where all the tax IDs, the payment information lives. Of course, we can help between Armanino and us can help facilitate making those payments to your investors for you right directly from your account. Makes it really simple with a few clicks. All the positions. So this would be everything every deal that investor is invested in with you. You can click right into it here. You can see the account they're using and some high level economics like their ownership percent, committed versus contributed versus unreturned capital. Past positions. I talked about email, and then the notes are searchable by keyword. So if you're doing a fundraise, you meet a new investor at a trade show or an event, you can take some notes, put a task in, and follow up later, and you'll know exactly how to find them. So it's a little bit about some of the CRM capabilities and investor relations. Now let's quickly look at the flow for a new offering. And I could easily spend an hour on this. It's really will manage your offering flow from end to end. So what I think the best way to do this is I'll just kind of keep it high level and we can answer questions about it. So you can see on our new offerings page here, I have 5 new offerings out of different kinds. I can see my status towards that holistically, both my committed versus contributed capital. Here's my individual new offering. So I have syndications, I have funds. Adding a new offering is just clicking a button and starting to fill in the details. And I'll point out some of the things that we do there. But below that, we also have this new offering, views. And so this is really where we start to help speed up and collapse that time frame that it takes to raise capital. So when you advertise that new offering through your portal, your investors will then eventually get in, they'll look at it, and we can see here, and we can look by offering over different timeframes, maybe even the last 7 days, who's been looking at that offering and how much time have they been spending looking at that offering. So for example, if you send out an email blast advertising the new offering, or maybe a follow-up email, or you have some other kind of campaign or outreach program to let your investors know about it, you might expect to see a spike in your investors getting in and looking at that new offering. And really what it is, it's an interactive pitch book. So they can look at your PPMs and they can really evaluate everything. And the whole time they're doing it, we're spending time seeing how many times have they looked at it and how much time did they spend. So now, before you ever have a conversation with them, they're predisposed to have seen all this information. They can come with intelligent questions, and now that's going to speed up your time, and you know who to target. So that can be a really useful tool. Let's go into one of these new offerings. Now on the summary, there's going to be some basic data. There's the email tools, the notes, so you can send out email campaigns to everybody who's been invited. We have our prospects here. So this is going to be all your leads and prospects, depending on the nature of that offering, whether we support all the different flows, whether it's a 506B, 506C, it doesn't matter if it's a fund or a syndication. We have clients that do 1031 exchanges. So we really can cover that a really broad range there. But this is the prospects page is where you can easily come in and you can preview, or I'm sorry, what I want to do here, go down to this one, and you can add a list of contacts. You can use those tags, or you can add everybody. And when you add them to it, then they'll be able to see that new offering in the portal. I haven't gotten to show you what that looks like yet, but this is where you would work with all your investors, and you have search tools, you have bulk actions to send email reminders and do things there. But then we also have all their commitment data. So what are our notes when we're working through this process with that investor? When did we last contact them? When did they last view the offering? And we can also track their commitments. They can commit, or at least soft commit, or depending on how you configure it, firm commit directly through the portal. So all that information's here. If you take a call or receive an email, you can click their name and easily fill in the commitment data for them. Okay, so all that's done here. We can help you with their accreditation status. So we have built-in accreditation forms. So we can easily come in here and say, send an accreditation form for them to sign and fill out online, and then they can upload their proof. There's different ways to handle this, but once you have that information back, at some point you can come in and this just helps track that status and update it in one place. All your documents for the fundraise can easily be dragged and dropped into here. And then we have our offering set up in signatures. So let's talk a little bit about the offering setup, and I'll really kind of try to keep the signatures high level. So this is where we would configure that offering that your investors see in the portal. And there's a bunch of options here for how they see it, how they can preview it, accreditation things. And then you can configure through basically this WYSIWYG-like editor what that deal room will look like to them. And any of this information that you don't have set up, you can turn off. Like I can turn this graph off. I can leave these blank and they don't show up. So it's very simple to configure. But now let's look at and see what your investor sees. So when I click preview here, it's going to pop open a new tab. And this is you'll notice this is a preview of what your investor will see in their portal. So it's popped up a portal and it's given me a hypothetical investor here. And so what happens when you first send that email, your investor gets it, or maybe they come organically to this, they're just looking at their portal and they see there's a new offering they've been invited to, and they can click the link. And now they can flip through photos of that offering. Again, this happens to be a syndication, but it equally applies for a fund. You just market it a little bit differently. You have your offering highlights. They can view or download the PPM, view a webinar if you publish that, look at your other documents, see your terms and conditions, your offering terms, watch a video. Maybe that's a walkthrough of the property. Maybe that's a PowerPoint presentation. Look at a map, look at your terms and conditions, look at your management team. And I'm going fast through this, but we have some of the things to get to. We want to have some Q&A at the end. And so then they can click the green invest button. They can put in their desired commitment or maybe a minimum or whatever that is. It doesn't have to be finalized yet. If they're already an investor, then they can pick an existing account, or maybe they can enter a new account. Maybe they don't know which account they want to use yet, so they can do it later. And so then they would just come down and hit submit. So I'll leave that alone for now. When they do that, again, it comes back up here, and that's filling in on prospects tab, their status here. So you're going to get to a point where now you've firmed up all those commitments with them. They've opted in, they've seen an offering, you're tracking all that. Now you want to send that document for signature. And so this is where we track the signature requests. You can have multiple docs for signature out, and then we can track the individual status of your investors here and have they signed the agreements. When did we last send it? So we can send automatic follow-ups, and then we can bulk electronically countersign here. Setting up a document for signature is very simple. Let me just give you a quick highlight. I'm just going to edit one I've already got here. And what I want to highlight here is this is how you would essentially configure a document for signature. I won't go through a lot of detail here. I want to show you what the investor sees, but needless to say, you upload your PDF. It works similar to DocuSign, but this is our own proprietary technology. So it saves you a lot of time and could save you a lot of effort in using a tool like a DocuSign or something else, because there's no integrations required or anything like that. It's built on the technology that we've had in the market for over a decade that started with our property management side for signing tenant signatures. And we've adapted it purposefully for this use case, which is gathering mass signatures for a single document for real estate. And so to that point, you only really need to set this up one time. You have all your merge fields here. This is all the data that's coming off of their accounts, that's coming off of their commitments. So all their contact information, phone numbers, email addresses, tax IDs, you just drag and drop them where they need to go on the screen. And then for other parts or for other types of documents or pages is the word I'm looking for, you can drag and drop checkboxes in. Whoops, let me go back. You can drag and drop your checkboxes in. Like maybe I want to put one there. You can do things like specify what types of entities this is for. So if you have pages that are set up specifically for individuals or for trusts, you could say, well, they need to fill these in or sign these pages only if it's an individual or only if it's a corporation or trust. And of course, you have your signature blocks. So you can see I've already filled in some of the details here. Just drag and drop them in. You can size them, assign them. There's a lot of settings there, but it makes it really simple and you only have to do it once. So I'm going to cancel out of this now, and I'll show you what that looks like from an investor's perspective. Now, actually, in fact, this is a great time to pause and now flip over to our investor portal. We'll show you those things. So I'll start off with that. So let me pause for a poll now. I think I might have gone too far. I was supposed to stop before the fundraise flows. Sorry about that. So let's actually pause for a poll.
All good.
After that.
All right, I'm gonna launch the third polling question, which is pretty simple. Asks, are you currently using an investment management software? Yes or no? I'll give everybody just a few seconds to respond. And again, just a reminder, this is 3 out of 4 polling questions. To get CPE today, you'll need to answer 3 questions out of the 4 that we have. So we got a buffer question in there in case you missed one.
Yeah, and I think before we go over to the investor portal, we can just launch our 4th question as well.
All right, good. I'll go ahead and end this one and launch the 4th one. Our 4th polling question is, are you interested in attending a more in-depth demo of AppFolio's investment management software? You can choose yes or not at this time. And again, I mentioned that for CPE, you need 3 out of 4 polling questions. I'm probably telling you all things you already know, but also you have to stick around for at least 50 minutes of the presentation. So just also wanted to mention that as well. Just leave this up for a few more seconds. All right, I'll go ahead and end this and let you take back over, Mike.
All right. So now we're going to look at the last thing in our software today, and then we're going to open it up for questions and have our closing remarks. So this is our investor portal login. So a couple of things. I wanted to come to the screen to point out a few things that are really important. One is that this is going to be white labeled for your company. You'll have your logo, your background imaging, your contact information right on the screen. And it's also designed with a couple of things in mind before I dive in. One is simplicity and mobility. Because we know from our client base that most of the, where I say about 30 to 40% of investors across all of our clients are using their mobile device to log into the portal. And that number goes up every year. It has to be very simple and mobile friendly. And so we've designed it with that in mind. Plus, we know that investors are going to get in here and they're going to want to get something specific. They're going to want to review the performance of a portfolio, look at a new offering. They're going to want to get tax documents. So it has to be very easy to use. So we've designed it with that in mind with no learning curve. So they can log in. We also can enforce a 2-factor authentication code if you'd like to do that. And then they come right to the dashboard. Now keep one thing in mind, and that is that recall we've talked about entry points into the portal from the software, which is investors get an email, they get a big button that they can click on their phone or wherever they're at, and that will that'll basically take them right to that thing when they log in. So it might take them right to their tax forms or right to a signature. But if they just generically log in like I just did, they're going to be taken to a dashboard. Now, again, your logo would be here and the colors would be designed to match your website. So that's all configurable. But again, the navigation is very simple. If I want to look at new offerings, I can see I have a new one right here. Tax forms, documents, transactions. I can really quickly tap on it and get to what I'm looking for. I also have action items. So if I have a capital call or documents to sign, it's front and center. I can click that link. I can see I have my documents to sign here. And now I can click review and sign. This is kind of what I wanted to lead into previously, which is what does it look like for an investor to sign a document? Well, they'll be able to, what it's going to do now is it's going to render the PDF. Now, the first time, while it's doing that, the first time I come in here, it's actually going to present me with an additional screen. And it's going to have me just double check the account that I'm using, the tax IDs, everything, just make sure that's right. Because maybe I didn't know which account I wanted to use. Maybe I want to change it. So it also eliminates some of that back and forth. And there's other options in there. But once I get that set, it renders this document. And it's like I set it up with those check boxes, and I've gone in and put in some text in here, and I have a signature block so I can go in and type in my signatures. Again, they can actually do this. They can do the signatures on their phone or tablet if they wanted to do that. So that's the signature component to this. Let's go back to the dashboard. They can see distribution history. There's this little refer a friend button up here. What that'll do is copy an email template that you've designed into their email and send it to their friends or their family, whoever they want to send it to, and create a lead for you. So that can be a great referral source for you. Here they have their current investments. So the high level economics of those investments. Below there, their past investment history. So deals you've sold off. Unreturned. So this would be their basically their asset allocation with your company, and then where those assets are located on the map. And then if they go into one of these deals, let's say, let's use a syndication as an example here, the Heights West. So this basically gives them an interactive report they can get right on their phone. They can jump right to something specific. They can see your description that you can very easily update in your software. They can see their positions. So their cap table in the deal, this investor has 2 different positions, as you can see. Again, their performance, just like we talked about in the reporting. Asset details. Again, this is all coming out of the software. If they hover over this, they can look at any notes that you want to put in about things that do change, like the loan balance or valuation. They can look at photos, look at a map, get a detailed description there. Project updates is something we didn't talk about today, but it's a way to push out more frequent updates on a property. Say, for example, if you're doing construction, you have milestones that you want to push out, or renovations. You want to push out milestones to your investors. You can put in a lot of text, upload as many photos as you want. It's a really great way to keep that investor relations up with your investors. Down below that, we have their distribution history. They can export that to Excel. And then in recent documents. If this were a fund, there'd also be a section if there are any capital calls that they can review all their capital calls and download them. All right, so we talked about new offerings and kind of like a high-level fundraise. This investor has been invited to the Opportunity Fund, so naturally they can get in. They actually have a couple commitments in there already, but they can go and look at those and modify them. They can consume all their tax documents here. So, or they can grant access to their tax professional or their advisor, who can then log in and only get their tax documents. Now, they have a download all button right here, so that'll zip up all the files. So they can just, with one file, get all of their K1s. Later, if they have to get a specific K1, they can come back and look for it by investment, by account, because that's going to be important. And then, of course, by year, and they can go and look it up or whatever they want to do, print it out. Same thing with documents. They can securely upload documents to you. They can filter by investment, or you can filter across all documents and look for things that are specific. All your transaction history. We saw this earlier where you can go and look up all the transaction history for an investor, for a group of investors. They can do the same thing themselves here and download it to Excel. They know exactly who to contact when they need to. And the last thing I'll point out with the portal is up in the profile, if you want to, you can allow your investors the ability to update their phone number, mailing address, and email address through the portal. That will update on their contact. However, it will also send you an email right away. And we have an audit trail for the before and after values. Additionally, investors could have the option of coming into their accounts, and they can now they can then authenticate their bank account through Plaid. If you're using our payment service, they can add associated contacts, like maybe a spouse or a tax advisor, somebody who might also need to get in and look at documents or do things. So they can do that without ever talking to you if you want to allow them to do that. This is all encrypted. When they do change sensitive information like this, it does require a 2-factor code on your phone. So it does force that for sensitive PII data. So that's another very important point. But I think we'll end it there in terms of the demo today. I think we've talked about a lot there. So let me just go back over and share my screen now on the slides. And as that's loading up, looks like it's still loading there for some reason. Usually that's pretty quick. Oh, let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so I guess the last thing I want to mention here, and then we can open up for questions, is that actually, you know what? Let's open it for questions first before I go through this slide. How about that? So if anybody in the audience has a question, there should be a Q&A button somewhere on your Zoom panel there, and you can feel free to type in your question if you have any.
Well, we're giving everyone a chance there, Mike. First off, I want to say great job. That was a lot of information to get through, and a lot of details for everyone to digest. So appreciate you taking the time to give everyone a great glimpse of the opportunity that sits in front of us. For those that managed to attend this live, or those that are watching it recorded, we appreciate you all being here. Obviously, if there's interest in digging in deeper, wanting to know a little bit more, and trying to get direct involvement with the product, or a little bit more deeper dive into what impacts you, by all means, let's continue the conversation. Make sure that we do that with you accordingly.
Well, we got a good question here. So if you have a fund with multiple loans, let me go grab that again. If you have a fund with multiple loans, can you present the loans on the map as part of the fund? Yeah. So if you're asking about, can I show where the collateral on the loan is? Then yeah, you absolutely could. There's a way that you can go in and put the address. It would be on the asset, and you definitely could show that if you wanted to. Hopefully I interpreted that question correctly. All right. Well, while we're waiting for the questions, I think we have a few more minutes. Let me just, give you some closing remarks here. So, with regard to this slide, AppFolio Investment Management has been really designed to handle all aspects of your business, from relationship management with investors, fundraising, financial reporting, distributions and K1s, things you've seen today and things you haven't quite seen today, with an investor portal to provide a fantastic experience to your investors. If you'd like to learn more about our investment management platform, you can fill out a quick request form. I think we're going to post one in the link, but if not, we'll reach out. And our in-house onboarding team is working double time to get our clients set up within, in many cases, just a matter of weeks. So it can all be really, really quick for you. So looking forward to hearing from all of you, and thanks for your time today. Jason, I'll kick it back over to you.
No, I think that's great. So once again, thanks for all the team. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate the time today, and look forward to connecting further on how we help you be more successful and raise more capital. Take care, everybody.